has a population of about 500 people. So it really was very fortunate what happened. Thousands of residents between Brownsville and Corpus Christi had fled north and west as the hurricane approached. We're going to get to the story with Tony Perkins. He is down in Kingsville, Texas, and we'll go to him in just a few moments.
And from potential disaster here at home to a definite disaster overseas, this morning we'll have an update on that family from Marietta, Georgia, who lost 4 of their 5 children and their grandfather in the earthquake in Turkey last week. We'll find out how the survivors are doing and why they're so angry at the United States State Department. Also, there's a new study out today that we're going to talk about people addicted to the internet, and there are a lot of them. Plus an exclusive live interview with the rap mogul Puff Daddy and the winner of the biggest game show jackpot in TV history. He'll be here with the summer's hottest TV host, Regis, who is He's going to love the fact that you just called him the hottest TV host.
Well, he's turning people into millionaires, maybe.
That's right.
But all of that's coming up. First, we're going to want to go to Tony Perkins, who is in Kingsville, Texas. Tony?
Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Elizabeth, and good morning, everybody. We're in Kingsville, Texas, just about 35 miles south-southwest of Corpus Christi, about 35 miles north of where Hurricane Brett hit land just about 12 hours ago. This was a very strong storm, although it moved from a Category 4 storm to a Category 3 hurricane just before it hit land. But it did cause some light damage and some flooding across much of the region. As Charlie mentioned, it happened to hit in an area that is sparsely populated. That is the good news, but we continue to see some threats from the system. Behind me now, you can see this community is in darkness. This is a power line and a power pole that is down. This is one of 2 that are down on this street. No power in this particular community. We're still under the gun here and in other parts of southern Texas. There's a fear of flooding. We saw some minor flooding earlier this morning, but there could be some serious flooding as we could see rainfall totals of up to 15 inches. This storm is still strong, still packing maximum sustained winds of 80 miles per hour. Where we are right now seeing gusts of about 50 miles an hour, and it still has a danger of spawning some tornadoes. Here are some pictures that we shot yesterday as the storm moved onto shore. Once again, we said it was a Category 3 storm that moved in over land, packing 125 mile per hour sustained winds, causing heavy rain, strong winds, and some flooding in Kennedy County just to our south. Here in Kleberg County, which is where Kingsville is, and in Brooks County to the west, they're kind of getting the brunt of it right now. Again, we're not out of the woods throughout southern Texas. This is going to continue to move rather slowly across the southern portion of the state. The storm is now taking a turn slightly to the north, so it's a little bit closer to us than it was just 3 hours ago, hence the strong winds and the strong rain that we're seeing once again. We'll keep you updated on what's going to happen with Hurricane Brett. It is still a hurricane, Category 1. We'll tell you more about that and what's happening down here in Texas in just a little bit. Charlie?
All right, thanks very much, Tony. Now for more on Hurricane Brett and the rest of the news, we're going to go to Antonio Moore. Antonio?
Thank you, Charlie. Good morning, everyone. There is reason to give thanks this morning on the Texas coast. For the most part, the region did come through its brush with Hurricane Brett unharmed. For more details, we go to ABC's Mike Von Fremd, who is on South Padre Island. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Antonio. While flooding is still a very dangerous threat, what was believed to be the most vulnerable area, this popular beach resort that is also a barrier island, could not have been more fortunate.
The skies may be calm this morning, but when the storm was hovering offshore, it looked like South Padre was going to take quite a pounding. Corpus Christi was braced for the worst as well, with residents ready to hunker down. But by the evening, it was clear both communities were spared the worst. There is a good deal of sand on some of the main roads, and many signs have been knocked down. Roofs are going to need repair, boats have slipped off their moorings, and many homes need work. But people have power and water, and for the most part, residents are going to find that their homes held up well. With what's left of the eye lingering over southern Texas, the concern inland is flooding.
The areas that are now being hit are some of the least populated parts of Texas, including a county with more cattle than people. Antonio?
All right, thank you, Mike. ABC's Mike Von Fremd on South Padre Island in Texas. More than 6 days after the massive earthquake, 2 small boys were pulled alive this morning from the rubble near Istanbul. One is 3 years old, the other 4. But with few exceptions, efforts have moved away from rescue to focus on recovering bodies and just surviving. ABC's Clay Scott is in Turkey. Good morning, Clay.
Even with this morning's miraculous rescues, hope here is fading fast, and some of the international teams, the rescue teams, are already giving up their search for survivors.
Now the focus has shifted to the living. An American warship, the USS Kearsarge, has arrived with medical equipment and more than 80 doctors and nurses ready to treat some of the thousands of people injured in last week's quake. The hundreds of thousands of homeless survivors here now face a new threat. Rain is expected for the next several days, and doctors fear the runoff could hasten the spread of cholera and other contagious diseases. The latest blow to a country struggling to return to normal. Clay Scott, ABC News, Istanbul.
And on a much lighter note, in Minnesota last night, it was a return to the good old days for wrestling fans. One of wrestling's biggest stars ever, Jesse Ventura, returned to the ring as the chief executive of the state and as referee. Here's ABC's Jim Williams.
As he entered the ring before a sellout crowd chanting his name, Jesse Ventura took on critics who said the governor of Minnesota had no business being here.
I'm proud I'm a wrestler. I'm proud I was a wrestler. And I'm proud to be here tonight.
Ventura was once one of wrestling's villains. Last night, the governor/referee kept his distance from the action. But he did draw cheers for ejecting from ringside Chyna, the manager of wrestler Triple H. Ventura says he'll donate his $100,000 fee to charity, though he could make $1 million in video royalties. But more than the money, it was Ventura's very appearance here that upset some Minnesotans.
I think there's certain things that a governor shouldn't do, and he's gone over the line.
Inside the Minneapolis arena, Ventura supporters were loud and visible.
His roots were wrestling, and, you know, it's good to see him come back.
Back where Jesse Ventura showed once again he's America's most unconventional politician. Jim Williams, ABC News.
Finally, an American tourist who wandered the Australian outback for more than a month has been found. Robert Bogucki set out on a trek through the Great Sandy Desert 40 days ago. The 33-year-old Alaskan had been feared dead after local residents found some of his belongings. Bogucki says he survived the ordeal by eating plants and drinking muddy water. That's a look at the news at 7:08. It is time to go back to Kingsville, Texas for more of Tony Perkins and a look at the weather, not only there, but nationwide. Hi, Tony.
Good morning, Antonio. Good morning, everybody. We're going to tell you about the national forecast in just a moment. First, a little more about Hurricane Brett. As we said just a couple of moments ago, it is still a hurricane. We don't want people to think, oh, it's all over, but the shouting. It's still a hurricane. We've got maximum sustained winds of 80 miles an hour. That's still very strong. Some gusts higher than that. Lots of rainfall. In some places, up to 20 inches of rain with this system have fallen in parts of northeastern Kennedy County here in southeastern Texas. Take a look at the history, the progression of Brett. This is a storm that developed very rapidly in the Gulf of Mexico. On Wednesday, it was a tropical depression. Then it turned into a tropical storm on Thursday, became a hurricane Friday night, a Category 4 hurricane on Saturday, and it hit land at Padre Island in Kennedy County at 6:25 last night as a Category 3 hurricane with 125 mile-per-hour winds. Here's a look at the satellite showing you how things developed over the course of time. Goes back to 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. You can see the storm intensify. Very compact storm with a very small eye. The eye has disappeared now and filled in at this point. As far as the national weather forecast goes, we're going to continue to see rain showers and strong gusty winds and some flooding in southern portions of Texas. We'll also see some thunderstorm activity around the western Great Lakes, parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois as well, into the central part of the country. That's a look at what's happening around the nation. Now here's what's happening in your neighborhood.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning. I'm meteorologist Bill Evans, and in our neighborhood we're starting out 63 degrees, humidity's drying out, the barometer's rising. And this is how it looks outside. A gorgeous morning in progress. Bright blue skies. It'll be a beautiful day today, all day long, and for at least the first part of the week. So getting back to work, it is really a nice way to start. High today will be 84. Tomorrow, sunshine, a little warmer, 87. 87 on Wednesday. Then a significant storm comes in for Thursday and Friday, bringing us some much-needed rain. Have a great day.
And coming up in just a little bit, we'll have more from Kingsville, Texas on Hurricane Brett. Stay with us for that. Charlie?
All right, thanks, Tony. As we've been discussing, Hurricane Brett hasn't hit Texas as hard as forecasters feared, but there is, as Tony mentioned, still the possibility of major flooding. And joining us now, Tom Milwee. He's the state coordinator for the Texas Department of Public Safety's Division of Emergency Management, and he is in Austin, Texas. Joining us from Kingsville, Texas, Julie Thomas of the American Red Cross, who's just getting mic'd up there in the position that Tony was standing. Let me start with you, Tom. Corpus Christi was braced, Brownsville was braced, but this storm seemed to slip in between the two of them, and I guess that's the good news in all this, isn't it?
Well, that's correct, Charlie. That is a blessing in the sense that the impact could have been far more devastating in Corpus Christi.
So you escaped the basic or the major wind damage that could have hit either one of those cities, but as Tony mentioned just a moment ago, you've got an enormous amount of rain, 20 inches of rain in some areas, I gather.
Absolutely. The forecasts tell us that with the forward speed of about 5 to 6 miles an hour, we're looking at the possibility of, say, 15 to 20 inches of rain as it moves toward the area of around Laredo, where it will exit Texas.
And things have been rather dry there in the state in the past few months, right?
They have, and they continue to be, unfortunately, north of this area. So we're going to still have wildfire problems at the same time we're dealing with flood issues in the aftermath of Brad.
I was going to say, that gives you, given the fact you've got a very dry area there, gives you some real prospects of flash flooding.
Oh, absolutely. And we have pre-positioned resources not only in San Antonio, but over in Laredo, as well as down in the Rio Grande valleys for that contingency.
Now, the specific area where it came ashore, I don't know Texas geography very well. I guess it's Kennedy County, and that's the area of the King Ranch?
It's in that general vicinity. That's about 60 to 70 miles just south of Corpus Christi.
Now that's, there's a lot of livestock there, not many people. Concerned about livestock damage?
Well, naturally, we are, as we were last year in the October floods. So the livestock issue is one that we've got on our screen and that we're prepared to deal with.
And you're still getting pelted with rain in those areas. I mean, this is going to keep up for a couple of days?
It looks like the system will move into Laredo perhaps late tonight, tomorrow morning, and then exit the area. So over the next day and a half or so, we're going to be dealing with this issue.
Julie Thomas, you had a voluntary evacuation in parts of Corpus Christi and parts of Brownsville. I gather you have a lot of people in shelters. Given the fact that wind damage didn't materialize, can those people leave or do they need to stay where they are?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Well, I was just saying you had a lot of people in shelters when you expected the storm to come in either in Corpus Christi or in Brownsville. Are those people still in the shelters or can they leave?
Yeah, absolutely. The American Red Cross sheltered last night nearly 9,000 people in safe areas west and north of the danger zones. We'll continue to keep shelters open as long as they're needed.
Well, but how long will they be needed? Can those people go home now that they escaped the wind damage, or do you want them to stay in the shelters?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
I was just saying, can those people go home now, or do you want to have them stay in the shelters?
I'm not sure what you asked, but basically about shelters, we'll continue to take evacuees as they're coming in. After it's safe, after this, we'll determine if we need to open additional shelters, not only for evacuees, but for people who may have had damage to their homes.
Well, I gather from that answer you want them to stay in the shelters for now. Tom, just one more question. What's the concern at this point?
Well, it's the flooding problem, Charlie. 15 to 20 inches of rain in those areas could be very devastating to South Texas, and that's our big focus right now, the one we'll continue to monitor and respond to.
All right, Tom Milwee, thanks very much. Julie Thomas, it's not easy to hear in those high winds, and I appreciate you being with us. Elizabeth?
All right, Charlie, now we have an update on the Georgia family that suffered such devastating losses in the earthquake in Turkey last week. This morning, Jan Kalich, her sole surviving daughter, 3-year-old Natalie, and her mother-in-law Tarkan are all back home. But also home, the bodies of Jan's 4 children and that of her father-in-law who perished in the quake. As you may remember, Jan took her children along with her in-laws to Turkey. Her husband, an anesthesiologist in Marietta, was supposed to join them over the weekend. And then the quake hit. Her husband rushed to Turkey to face the tragedy, and the family is not only grieving, they are angry at the way they say they were treated by the American government. Joining us now from Birmingham, Alabama is Jan's brother, Bill Kemp. Bill, good morning.
Good morning.
How are Jan and Natalie and her mother-in-law all doing physically?
Natalie's doing wonderful. She doesn't remember a thing, which is really a blessing. My sister arrived in Atlanta early this morning. She's at the hospital. She's in a back brace.